All right. So good morning.
Pedro, sorry for interrupting. Can you just ask people to remove the sound, please?
Sure. If you and Rui can help me with that, just to check if everything is good with the sound. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Power BI Portugal Meetup. My name is Pedro Reis, and today we are here with the presence of Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari for our 30th Meetup. So welcome, guys, and thank you very much for coming here to our Meetup. As usual, we'll do a quick intro, then we'll have also our sponsor, and then we go straight to the session. In our agenda, we'll do this intro. Then we have here Vanessa from Expand IT to tell us, to introduce us a little bit and bring something also to the community. So I'll give her the word in a little bit. Then we'll have a 1 hour session with Marco and Alberto, and we'll open the usual feedback form in the end of the event. In regards of our numbers, our community continues to grow. We have over 2,800 members right now, and we organize over 30 meetups in a little over 2 years. So congratulations, guys, for keeping up and coming to the meetups. And on this one, we have over 300 people registered. So really good to see that you enjoy the content that we publish, and also that you also enjoy the topic that we bring together for you today. We hope it will be a nice session for sure. You guys already know our channels. We have the Meetup platform, we have a LinkedIn channel, we have GitHub also for some content we share, and also the YouTube channel where we will also place the video from our recording today available for you. We also have an informal WhatsApp channel just to share some questions with other members that you want. You can have the links here if you are interested in any of these. Other thing, as usual, we are looking for people who want to contribute to the community, being a sponsor and can bring something to our community, some certification vouchers, some gadgets, some books. We are also looking for people that can contribute to like this. If you want to speak at the community, we also want to have a good balance between local Portuguese speakers and international reputed guests like we have today. So we are interested in having the best of the two worlds. So if you want to speak, just send us a message to our email, powerbiportugal@gmail.com, and we'll make it happen with you. And also, if you want to contribute to growing our community and help us organize next meetups, or if you have any idea, just get in touch with us and let's work with you for that. So in the last meetup, as you remember, sponsored by Cultura.bi, we raffled 3 €50 vouchers for technology, and we have 3 winners and 2 subs. And today we are going to quickly draw the last 3 winners from the meetup. So I already have here all the winners, all the participants from the feedback form from the last one, and we're going to do the live draw. So 3 more people that win the voucher. Congratulations, Carlos Marques. You are the first lucky one. Teresa Risso, congratulations to you. And the final one, Marlene Silva. Congratulations to the 3. I will draw 2 more subs just in case you don't respond to the voucher. So the first substitution, André Roche, and the last one. All right. So congratulations to all of you. Let me just take a quick screen cap. Where is it? Here. All right, so let's place it here in our presentation, and congratulations to you guys. So let's move on. In the end, so today we have our sponsor Expand IT, and we'll gently also allow 2 certification vouchers for any exam that you want to do. It might be, for instance, the Data Analyst Associate 100. And if you fill the form that we'll share in the end, share what you thought about the feedback. We'll also share this information with Marco and Alberto. Tell us suggestions, what you want to see also content on the next meetups, and it will really help us and we'll make it happen. And so with that, I'll give the word here to Vanessa from Expand IT to share a little bit with you guys and also about the company. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Pedro, and good morning to everyone. So first of all, thank you for having me here today in this meetup. My name is Vanessa Ramos. I am a business intelligence project manager at Expand IT, and I'm also a big fan of this Power BI meetup, so I try to attend as many as possible. Usually I just sit in the crowd and listen and learn with you, but today I'm actually here as a sponsor to tell you a little bit about Expand IT. So let me share my screen very quickly. Okay, can you see my screen?
Perfect, Vanessa.
Okay, so for those of you who never heard about Expand IT, Expand IT is a Portuguese tech company that has been on the market for almost 20 years now. And we have several business units that specialize in very specific technologies, like Power BI is just one of them. And we have a strong relationship with Microsoft for a while now. So we are partners with Microsoft. We have the gold standard in a few categories like data and analytics, cloud platform, application development. We were actually partner of the year last year. And about our team, we are about 320 people right now. We had really interesting growth rates in the last years, and we're always recruiting, so it's really hard to keep this number in this slide updated. And these 300 people are mostly located in Portugal. So we have several offices. The main ones are in Lisbon and in Viana do Castelo, but we also have other offices in Porto, in Braga, and this allows us to be closer to people and to work with distributed teams. We were actually very used to working remotely, even before COVID forced everyone to do it. We also have a few offices overseas. So first we opened an office in London, then in San Francisco, which is dedicated to products. And more recently, we also opened a new office in Sweden. So even though today I am here representing the Business Intelligence unit, which is the unit I work for, Expand IT is actually broader than that. So we have a big data unit and we have a data science unit that typically work very closely together with the Business Intelligence units because we want to provide the complete services on data solutions, either with real-time use cases or with predictive analytics. So we use a lot of Microsoft technologies for this. But we also have other units that are actually not here in the slide. So we have a digital experience unit, which deals a lot with mobile solutions and also works a lot with Microsoft technologies like Azure, like Power Apps, like Power Automate. And so we end up creating full solutions with the Power Platform. So in my case, I'm a part of the BI unit, and our focus is on creating end-to-end data solutions for customers with leading BI technologies. But Power BI is one of these technologies, and it's the reason why I'm here today. But the services are actually broader than that. So our focus is not only in the data visualization. Our aim is actually to help customers throughout the whole data journey to get more out of their data. So from the moment that customers are defining their data strategy, to set up the infrastructure, to implementing the data extraction and transformation processes, or building the reports and dashboards. But we also support them in the user enablement phase with customers that need training, for example. So just to finalize, regarding our customers, in these last 20 years, we had the privilege of working with a lot of known brands, many more than those that are shown here in the slides. These are just a few references of customers we have worked with. And lately, we have been developing some interesting solutions using Power BI and also other components of the Power Platform that I really hope that I will be able to share with you in one of these meetups in the future in a technical session. So from my side, that's it. I don't want to take any more of your time, and I hope that the certification vouchers are useful to you. And now let's just move on to the reason why we're here today, which is learning a few new tricks with Marco and Alberto. So for me, I just wish you a good session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vanessa. And definitely, I'm sure it will be really important also for the community, and also one of the good things about Power BI and the ecosystem. It's exactly this ecosystem of the community, the partners, the technology, the product, everything. All the pieces get together. So thank you very much for also sponsoring today our event. So without further ado, we are right on time, 11:10, and we'll kick off with our meetup with Marco and Alberto. So today we have a couple of questions that were already shared by the community in the last few days. So we'll go with the questions that we received, but we'll also have some time. If you have further questions and you weren't able to ask before, you can just put it in the chat, and we'll also see if we can pick a few of them also to ask to Alberto and to Marco during this meetup. So good morning, Marco and Alberto. Thank you very much for being here. How are you guys?
I'm doing well, thanks.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you guys. One first question to kick things off is there is a lot of curiosity from the communities in the way that how the two of you work together. So if there is any particular area that one of you focuses more and the other one doesn't like that much, is that something that one of you is passionate about and the other one not so much? How do the two of you organize things in between?
Well, no, actually, I think we are really lucky because there are a lot of things that I don't like and Marco loves them, and the opposite is also true. So just to give you a few examples, Marco is very technical. He loves to dig into technical details that I find utterly boring. And he hates to do slides, documentation, videos and stuff like that. And I love to do them. So we can easily split our job this way. The problem is when we need to do something together, that unfortunately happens quite often, because we fight a lot. I mean, we really do not schedule a meeting between us. When we schedule a meeting, it's also a meeting for a fight. We know that we will discuss to death some topic. And I think that's the good thing about us, the way we work together, because I know that whatever I do, Marco will check it, and he has no mercy. If I do any kind of mistake, he will focus on that, and we start discussing and discussing for days until we end up with something that works correctly.
Yeah, more or less is correct.
We will never imagine that would be the case. It's interesting that you share that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, what Alberto said is strangely right. Usually he makes a lot of mistakes I have to fix, but in general, no, I'm just kidding. No, the idea is that having different point of views is helpful for many reasons, right? Because we can find other ways to explain something or other problems that we were not aware before. And actually, sometimes working alone could be very difficult because you don't have a way to confront yourself, especially when you prepare new content. It's really, the risk is that you go in a direction that is completely wrong because you focus too much in a detail that is not important or something similar. So yeah, that is helpful. But at the same time, people who watch us, fighting are sometimes scared because the way we engage in a conversation, it seems we always have an argument, which we have, but we always respect each other in reality. So even though we use big words and something like that, but actually it's always because we look for a good solution.
Actually, it's not very different than an old married couple. It's basically the same. We always fight. But to me, this is the best thing because especially, I mean, when we publish something on the web, like a new article, new code, or whatever, people take for granted that our solution will work. And a lot of times we do mistakes, as anybody else. And I need somebody that looks at my code without assuming that I was right. Worse, searching for a mistake in my code. That is basically what we do all the time. If I can find a mistake in Marco's code, I'm really happy because I can point the finger and say, hey, you made a mistake there. So this kind of feedback is very important in our daily job.
It's quite interesting that the two of you find someone who can do, let's say, code review for each other, because it's not so easy in the expertise that you are to find someone that can do. And linked to exactly this question regarding the production of the content that you do together also, how do the ideas come up for so many? You guys post so much content, so many new products, so many new posts. How do the ideas come up? Is it from, you know, things that come up from the live classes? Is it from a consultancy job? How do the ideas pop up?
It's easy. We have a lot of, everything you said, feedback we receive from the community, questions in our labs or in our classes, questions from customers. We don't do much consulting because of the time we have available, but the small consulting, remote consulting we do is very important to, you know, get some idea of real world use cases, and we always discover something new. And to be honest, the last problem we have is being short on ideas. We have a long list, very long list of content to write that is just there sitting, waiting for having the time to produce. And sometimes we cannot produce, I mean, sometimes something is not produced just because we don't have time, and after a while it becomes obsolete, and so we never produce that content. So yeah.
So you guys already have a big backlog of ideas to produce, right?
Oh yes,
huge backlog. I mean, that's scary. Whenever you say, okay, I have time to write a new article, we have a huge, can I say Excel file, because that is what it is. It's an Excel file.
Excel
that contains
forever.
all our notes, and it's growing and growing and growing. Even because, I mean, whenever we want to produce some content, it takes a lot of time to do that. We feel the responsibility for what we write. Again, because people take for granted that what we write is correct. Then we need to make sure that that is the case. So that means spending a ton of time checking performance. If you think about the DAX pattern, it took us ages to write each and every pattern, because you write it and you need to double check it, and Marco test the performance of each pattern. In doing that, maybe he introduced bugs, so we need to go back, and that was extremely long.
Yeah, took one year probably to complete the new patterns.
I have no idea. It's always the same. Whenever we need to plan the time required for a new book or a new training or whatever, we plan, we add more time because we know we will be late, and we already know that it will take double that time. No matter how good we are, it's always twice the time that we allocate for that.
Yep.
It's a typical technology estimation of budgets. It's twice the time and twice the people, many times. So I totally understand that. And regarding other point is recently, Marco, you participated in a podcast from SSBI with Chris Schreiber. It was a very interesting and 2-hour interview. And one of the points that was interesting in that interview is that you mentioned that many times you receive requirements for consultancy projects, and you know exactly what you are going to ask to these firms for you to provide your insight, that you have a list of elements that you ask. So with your vast experience, Marco and Alberto, what are the key elements when you are going to analyze a new requirement for the customer that you always ask?
So there are different answers depending on the questions it's coming from. So usually we don't receive many requests for companies that have to create a new project unless they want to just review the architecture. Most of the times we receive requests from companies who have a specific performance issue or a calculation issue or something related to the model and maybe the DAX code involved. And for example, Vertipack Analyzer, which is a tool that is completely free, but actually the reason for creating Vertipack Analyzer was to simplify gathering the information required to do the analysis. How many tables you have, how many rows you have in each table, how many unique values you have in each column. These are simple questions, but if you ask this question, most of the time people don't have any idea. Even though they've worked with the data for years, they don't have any idea. They say, oh, more or less 1 million, oh, a lot. The first answer is a lot. We have a lot of data, but they are not able to formalize, especially when it comes to the columns, for example. So when it comes to optimization, we try to collect objective information that are not, just the idea. We want the numbers, we want the data. When it comes to the other problem, which is, we have to design a new system. Maybe in that case, we don't have, a template to provide. But usually I know that many times people don't have a clear idea of the requirements. I don't know how many times 80% of the time of a 1 hour meeting is to understand the question, and 10% is writing the DAX code. So I help many companies that are struggling to create a formula. Reality is that they don't know what they want. The reality is that, we want to find the churn rate of our, or the attrition of our customer. Okay, what do you mean? It's clear. Okay, but how do you solve this? So I spend time asking them details about how exactly the formula should work in their case. And this is also the problem for creating the patterns. The patterns have to be generic enough that people can adapt. And we try to do this. And when you look at Sifton pattern, if you look at the comments, if you look at the people writing the comments, you see that many times people say, yes, I have seen this pattern, but it doesn't work for me. And they are not able to explain what they want. They say, no, I want another number, but they are not able to explain exactly what they want. So it's impossible to help them, but this happens a lot. So having a very, not a clear idea about what you want to get. I mean, you want to get a KPI, for example, but you are not able to define what you really want. And that is where people don't realize they spend most of the time there. And of course, if you ask this to someone who doesn't have the experience of assisting customers in these kind of business intelligence questions, you will just get an implementation that is a random guess of what you ask and not exactly what you ask. So, and that is something that happens often, yes.
Quite interesting, because you mentioned. So first you mentioned maybe a quote to the famous book, "Give me the numbers." That is one of the also most recommended non PDF like books known in people that work with data. Also the second thing is, if you can, the second takeaway is, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. And so going more on a quantitative and not a qualitative assessment and analysis. And even you mentioned the case that if needed to develop an external tool which can provide you the numbers. So which leads me to the next question, which is, for many times there is a confusion in SQL BI. There are a lot of links and external tools, and some people do not exactly understand which tools were like developed for you guys and which tools were developed for other people. So maybe you and Alberto can tell us more about all the tools that all the tools, Tableau Editor, DAX Studio, Vertipack Analyzer, all that things. What was built by you guys or in collaboration, and what is not?
This is an interesting question, because why people ask this question? The problem is that why the people ask this question. I tell you, I mean, I will answer, but the problem is the idea for our page is just to provide resources that are useful for people to do their job. We didn't care too much. We were the developer or not. Who cares? I mean, if the tool is useful, important, we include it in the list. That's the basic idea. Then the problem is that every tool can have a different story, and there are different complexities behind each tool, because some tool is developed in C#, some tool is just an Excel file, some tool is open source, some tool is not. There is everything there. For example, MDX Studio is not open source, but DAX Studio is open source. So one is maintained by someone, so it's complex. So you should go in every single page for each tool and look at the details. And the problem is that people don't read. The problem is that if you follow the links, every tool has a license that describes exactly how things work, and we continue to receive email from companies saying, "Oh, I want to buy DAX Studio," and we say, "Sorry." Right? It's free. Second, we are not even the producer. I mean, they just don't read. The real thing is that people don't read. Don't whatever you write. There are people who, I mean, their role is to be in the purchase department of a company, and they receive the request for buying a product that is not even on sale, and they ask by email what is the price of something that is not on, that is free. So what are you doing? I mean, your job is to find the cheapest price for something, and you want to pay something for something that is free. So how are you conducting your job? I don't understand.
Fantastic opportunity.
Marco, the thing is that you're putting this as other people don't read, but actually we do exactly the same stuff. So
yeah, okay.
Whenever we go to a website, you just look at a few pictures, you get an idea, and you draw conclusion from there. But I honestly don't remember having read all the details about something that I'm planning to use. So the problem is that we are overwhelmed with information, and we just draw the quickest conclusion we can from the smallest amount of information that we can read. But this would be too philosophical. I don't want to.
And that can be quite powerful, Alberto, when you have limited time. For sure, that's a key skill.
Yeah. So in order to answer to your question, we are not the owner of many of the tools that you see, because most of the tools are, so whatever tool we had there, if we work on it, is usually open source. So everything is on GitHub, available for anyone to collaborate. There are tools like, for example, DAX Studio. We collaborate with Darren Gospel, but Darren Gospel, who is a Microsoft MVP in living in Melbourne, he is the main maintainer of the code. He wrote more than 90% of the code of DAX Studio. Personally, I wrote something there, and we collaborate. Yes, we have an active collaboration for DAX Studio. We don't have the same collaboration for Tabular Editor, in the sense that we didn't write code that is actually within Tabular Editor, even though this is not technically true, because the DAX formatter integration has been written by Daniel, who works in Denmark, by using the code that we developed for DAX Studio. And we talk with Daniel a lot. So a lot of features that have been implemented because we discussed them. So we didn't write the code, but we helped shaping part of the tool. So for this reason, when you're asking which tool is produced by SQL BI, well, if they were commercial tool, the question would be meaningful. But we're talking about free tools, mainly open source. So exactly, what's the reason for the question? So we should evaluate the tool for the features, not for who is the producer. There are many tools produced by Microsoft that are so bad, this doesn't mean that Microsoft cannot do good. It produces excellent products, but a few products of Microsoft are not good, and the same could be for everyone. So we should evaluate one by one, not just by the producer.
And so a key takeaway, it really doesn't matter. Just embrace it as part of the ecosystem, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But there is specifically one brand new tool that we want to also ask one or two questions today, which is DAX Do. And that one is really brand new. We already have prepared a few questions. I know that recently you are launching new content about it and providing some explanations, even about the way, how does it work, with the intermediary DAX Do service. You guys already made, I don't know if everyone already saw the video. If not, please check it out, where there is a clear explanation about how is the connection between the website in JavaScript and connection to an Azure Analysis Services instance. There is a lot of things in behind it. What I want to ask today is, how can you guys tell us a little bit more about it? How did the idea for this came up, and which use cases do you also see for this tool for the future?
Oh, this is funny.
Marco, just
go.
let me introduce the topic, because the idea came a few months ago. I don't remember exactly when August. When Marco said, hey, I have this brilliant idea. We can build a website that let people work with DAX code and do stuff. Then the idea sat down for a while until Marco decided that it was time to start. And my answer was very simple. And it was like, Marco, you have better things to do. If you spend 1 minute working with DAX2, I will kill you, because we are late on all the projects that we need to deliver. And so he started to work at DAX2 without telling me, because whenever he said, hey, I implemented this new feature, I would stop him and say, no, you need to do slides, or you need to do documents, articles, and all the stuff that we do. So DAX2 was completely written without me knowing that it was being written, and it was nearly finished, and they show me the final result. That is actually cool. So it's just beautiful, but it's I know nothing about DAX2 because it was built without my knowledge about time.
Vocês gostaram? Sim. Então, de que é que as abelhas precisam? Onde é que vivem as abelhas?
So let me just quickly mute everyone. I think so. Now, Marco and Alberto, can you please unmute back? Just that we
okay.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
But now you can go ahead, Marco.
No, okay. The original idea of DAX2. So besides the way it has been implemented by me and Daniele. Daniele works with us with the website, and he is the main author of everything is running on a browser is made by Daniele. I would never be able to write a JavaScript code there. But the architecture of DAX2 has different elements. But for this thing, there is a video we published on last Saturday on our YouTube channel where you can find the description of the architecture behind, because as of today, you cannot write a web page connecting directly to analysis services or Power BI, and there is an explanation of what is running behind it. The original idea of DAX2 actually came up with a discussion with Microsoft. We were saying in a conversation for other things, there was this idea of having a playground where you can write code online and try the code online, like it is possible for many languages. For many languages, you have the same website where you can type some JavaScript code or CSS code or C# code and test it online without having to install anything. And that was the basic idea. So the idea was nice, and we thought about having something that was able to be part of the ecosystem we have. And DAX2 was a feature that made sense combined with other features. And for example, today, just a few minutes ago, we should have published on the social media that we published on DAX Guide for all the functions, almost all the functions we have in DAX Guide. Now you have a lot of additional examples that you can test in DAX2. So the idea is that you are looking for a function in DAX, you go in DAX Guide, and you see the help of the function. Then you see the example of the function, and if you want to test it, you don't have to copy and paste the code. You just click one button, you open DAX2, and you can test the code in a query. This helps showing DAX as a language, as a query language, rather than just an expression language for the measure, which is a good idea because you can create paginated reports. You can create reports in Excel. For example, you can export data from Power BI to Excel using a DAX query. And there are many things that are not, completely used today by many people. But let's say that this could help in, learning, and it fitted well in our, ecosystem. So the articles in SQL BI, the functions in DAX Guide, and DAX2 were possible to be, combined together. And so we thought it was a good idea, and we implemented it.
For sure, definitely, and personally, I also see a lot of use cases for it. And we are already starting to have, as we have over 130 people here, some people are very interested also to interact with you guys and to ask some questions. I will ask a final question regarding DAX2 before, and then everyone who wants to ask questions can raise the hand, and I will also pass it to you. Regarding the DAX2, the question is, do you guys plan to add more data sets to it in the future?
Yes, but the constraint is that, so there is nothing wrong in adding content there, but the main goal of DAX2 is being educational. So it doesn't, I don't expect to show a completely different model to create other kind of calculation, because the basic goal of DAX2 is to support learning DAX, right? Or to see examples of DAX code. And the more data models you have, the more complex it becomes to just focus on the syntax or the behavior. Sometimes it is required. For example, we know that for financial functions that today we don't cover much, we need something. We added a few tables in a DAX guy sample that you can find now, but there is probably more that is needed to do a more in-depth analysis of certain financial functions, for example. So there could be functions that require specific models. I would not expect to create just models and models and models just to have different models, because you cannot do much. After you create your query, you cannot do much there. So unless there is the need for a specific pattern or calculation, we certainly will add something, but I don't expect in the over years having 20, 30 different models. That's not a goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's not a goal to provide a very large model to let people test the performance. Because again, DAX2 is not about testing performance or working with large models or your own data set. There's DAX Studio for that. So if you want to analyze performance on your model, there's no point in going to DAX2. You just use DAX Studio and do the job.
Okay, no, very, very clear. And I think there are a lot of possibilities already with the two data sets already there. So if you guys hadn't tried it yet before, just find DAX2 and try it out. It's a fantastic new tool. I see a lot of use cases for it, definitely. So we have here Ricardo and Stefan who want to raise a question. Ricardo, do you want to go first to ask a question?
I can go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
Yes.
Hello. Good morning again. So my first comment is I am a little mad with you because I should have around 2,000 links to read, and 300 of them are from you both. So I'm a little mad with it.
Sorry
also, for that. Also, I have some of your trainings, as several people have. And I would like to ask, question can be placed in two ways. If you are talking about training, if you are going to update your SSIS training, and the other way, Marco is already is understanding the question, and the question at the same time is, does it make sense to update this training, or are we going to end up in Power BI service on the end? Do you understand?
Yes,
So,
of course.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, put it this way, if Marco didn't write DAX2, it would likely that we already have a new SAS tabular training available.
No, this is not true. This is not true.
No, we are actually working really hard on updating the SAS tabular training.
Okay.
So there will be a new SAS tabular training. I cannot tell you exactly when, because it's a huge work. It's huge, and we know it will be double. So we have no idea when it will be done. But to me, the most interesting question is whether it makes sense or not. And the answer is definitely yes, it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really matter whether your SAS tabular engine is working in the cloud, on premises, or wherever else. It's the same engine, so you need to understand how it works. And if you don't know how to build your model the right way, then the model will suck, no matter if it's on premises, in the cloud, on Power BI Premium, or wherever else.
Exactly.
What changes is the user interface. What changes is the price you pay. So either you buy a new server if you work on premises, or you go to an upper tier in the cloud. But in any case, you need to make a lot of choices. So we are currently working. I mean, I was working this morning just before the training on the.
Me too.
Until the next bright idea that you want to do. So yes, we are working a lot, and I think it will. I think it will be really a beautiful new training, because it gives me the same feeling that I had when we wrote the Definite Guide to DAX. We are trying to push all what we know about SAS tabular in one training. So to cover every important aspect for developers. So our goal is to talk with developers or people who want to understand how to build the correct models and want to understand the reason why they need to make some choices.
Alberto, if you give me just one minute, it's just to say that the question is, it's precisely that, because you could at some point tabular is here to stay, but you maybe your company you could decide at some point to create a new training that would be maybe creating models on Power BI service. So the concepts are very important. The question is really the branding, you know, because maybe we could do all of this inside Power BI service.
So if I can add, do you want to add something else?
And I will just add this, and then I won't say anything more. Is that after you finish this point, just to say, if you still have to give your client to teach your clients what is modeling and the importance of that, and I finish with that.
Okay, so one problem we have is the name, right? Because you probably know the content of the training, but the idea, just to clarify, we have a training today called SSAS Tabular Workshop, which basically is the content that describes how to create a model, in this case for analysis services, with Visual Studio, setting all the properties of a tabular model. So if you get everything that is not DAX, the content is there, which includes how to create the model, how to deploy the model, how to monitor the model, how everything, right? Now, the content was designed for analysis services on premises. I would say that 80% of what is there is still valid for Azure analysis services, and it is still valid for Power BI. The problem is that you are completely lost in the user interface, because the user interface is completely different. So what we are trying to do is to explain how the technology works, and then to provide examples of the user interface in different environments, clarifying what is the same, what is different every time. And this raises the problem of the name, because depending on the name, people could understand that it is a training that is good for them or not. And we still don't have a good name, by the way, but we are thinking about. We will come up with some solution.
You can also include that in the poll.
Yes, if you guys have some suggestions, just send it in the feedback form and we'll share it with Marco and Alberto.
Yeah, it's hard because, I mean, a lot of people use Power BI. They have no idea that Power BI actually is tabular. So but we cannot call it Power BI training. That would not be correct.
We will find a name. We will find a name. The problem is that we also have to differentiate between the data modeling training, which is a training about how you define the structure of the model, which is a completely different skill compared to, okay, how I define a single properties for, you know, I want this format, I want this data type, I want this relationship. Okay, these are the technical details about the implementation, but do you create a model with 10 tables or 5 tables? That's the data modeling skill. So data modeling is one thing, it's not going to change, the concept is the same. But we are talking about, okay, you know how to create a data model, and eventually you will get the DAX training. Everything in the middle is this training, which is, okay, you create a semantic model where you have concepts like columns, relationships, translations, KPIs, and sort by column, date table, compression, value encoding, and all this stuff that you can do that, especially when you create a large model, become important. So this is the idea of the training. So having this knowledge, if you want to go beyond what you just have in a couple of usually bad user interface in Power BI, because Power BI tries to simplify the life too much. But if you want to be serious with the model, then you should understand how the model works, use probably Tableau editor, and then you have the control over your model. And so this,
yeah, and then I think to me, the most important takeaway of the new training will be understanding better the architecture. So are you going to use direct query? Are you going to use composite models? How many data islands do you have? I can imagine people, probably there's somebody in a meeting right now that is planning their entire data warehouse building using the new composite models with a lot of disconnected data models, hoping that they will be able to join all of them together at the user from the user point of view. We know that is not going to work. Composite models have not been designed with that goal. And unless you understand that, you made the wrong choice. And if you make the wrong choice, you spend really bazillions of euros for no reason, just because you made the wrong choice. So the goal of the training is to educate people and provide them with our knowledge about the overall architecture. Then the question remains, if you are going to build the bad model today, are you going to attend the training to understand that? That is a question for which I have no answer. I just hope that that will be the case.
And especially because until you become good at something, your perception of your skill level not always is the best. So that's the Dunning-Kruger effect, and certainly something that is interesting. So a very interesting perspective, and we're looking forward. I have here, Stefan, do you want to pose a question too?
Yes, hello. Hello, thank you for that meeting. Thank you, you guys from Portugal, and thank you, Marco and Alberto. It's a pleasure to see you live, to be at the same meeting with you, guys. My question is about a video I saw. It was Marco that did some kind of a conference in front of like 200 people in a summit where you were speaking about some technical thing regarding hardware. You were speaking about the size of the memory and the core memory, etc. And at some point of the conference, you said something about the different size and the volume. You know, you said that around 100 million rows, okay, you don't have to worry too much about your model. It's still okay. But then when you start playing with a billion row, okay, be careful with your model. And then it's time at that stage to build a cube, etc. That was very interesting, and I would love to have some kind of an update of that analysis. Today, we are like 5 years after that conference you did in 2016. You were speaking as well to the VMware, something like this. Could you, if you remember that conference, could you give us an update about that? The idea is to be aware that until a million row, okay, I can go there, but then when I reach some critical size, then I have to be really careful, and that's the time where I have to speak with my IT to build a cube and so on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that so if I remember, the speech that you're mentioning was about, how to think in terms of scale when we talk about a tabular model, right? It was about tabular, not multidimensional, right?
Yeah. At the beginning, you spoke about multidimensional, but just to introduce Tableau.
Okay. So the changes that appeared in the hardware in the last few years didn't change this by one order of magnitude. Certainly, we have more capable hardware today. This is true. For example, Alberto has a machine today that has, how many cores you have, Alberto? 64, right?
32 physical and 64 virtual.
Which is a lot. I mean, I don't remember having had a server with that amount of cores. But while it is true that you can get a gaming machine that is more powerful than any server you have on the planet, at the same time, the chances that you run production workload on that machine is very low. Usually you have workload on the cloud where the hardware is not much more capable of the best hardware you could have bought, let's say, 5 years ago. So I would say, considering the cloud, nothing changed. Which means that the only thing that I would change a little bit today, we said large dimension is everything that is above 1 million rows. In reality, sometimes you can raise this number to 2, 3, 4 million rows, but it's always low, but not as low as it was 5 years ago, because they improved something in the tabular engine. Otherwise, more or less, the indication is the same. Then, of course, if you have the machine that Alberto has, you can afford having 4 billion rows and run queries that run in 2 seconds instead of 20 seconds. Good, but I don't think that you can base your architecture on this, right? And so I think that more or less the boundary, so 100 million rows, 1 billion rows, 10 billion rows, 100 billion rows is still the scale where we focus on when should we start worrying about compression, worrying about relationship, worrying about certain things. And the idea is that if you have your largest table is 10 million rows, who cares? Everything works. Don't spend time. I mean, do something else.
Yeah. Then I would also add, because I receive a lot of time questions like, hey, we have 10 billion rows in a fact table and we are having troubles, which is totally expected. If you have a very large table, of course, it's going to be slow. But an interesting question is, why do you have 10 billion rows in your table? Most of the times is because people do not want to build a proper data model. So you can pre-aggregate data, you can reduce the number of rows, you can build multiple fact tables and highly reduce the size of your tables. It doesn't happen frequently to really have to scan 10 billion rows. Most of the times is because you didn't spend enough time building the proper data model and reduce those 10 billion rows to maybe 100 million rows, where the problem completely disappear and life is just better.
Definitely. So, and also I think the Microsoft itself gives us an indication regarding the size of the data sets. Is it 1 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, 100 gigabyte? You also can see the evolution in what is considered today nowadays a large data set or not. That definitely is upgrading. Manel, I think you also have the raised hand. Manel is also one of the founders of our community. So I pass the ball to you, Manel.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. So first of all, many thanks, Marco and Alberto, for joining our community. And to give time to other people to make questions, I just have two questions for you. One is really to get your experience, because I can imagine that you are contacting and talking with a lot of communities all over the world. What is your advice for our community in terms of skilling on this area, on the Power BI, besides your training, of course, but what you see are the major areas coming, And the second one is more philosophical. It's what in your opinion will be, so we are looking at a lot of new features coming to Power BI, like the large models, the embedded, so a lot of things that are coming from the product group. What do you think will be in the next year, the next big thing, the next big announcement that you like to have in Power BI that would be a game changer in your opinion? And these are my 2 questions.
Yeah,
I know that they are not technical. One is really to advise the community and the people working with Power BI. I see a big challenge on the DAX, knowing DAX, and I think what you are doing, it's really amazing. And the second one is really what is the next big thing that we should wait or ask for in Power BI?
Well, where to focus your skills? I think that the answer is a very old one, because if I were a newbie in business intelligence, I would just focus on data modeling, understanding all the details of data modeling, reading Kimball's book from cover to cover multiple times until you really understand why everybody loves a star schema. If you only do that, so by only reading those old books, you already are really multiple steps ahead of most of the developers all around the world, and you can build a gorgeous model. Then, of course, you need to learn DAX, you need to know SQL, you need to know basic stuff. But business intelligence is not, in my opinion, about learning new features. It's not about learning new details about how Power BI works or the API work. These are small details. The large effort is in studying old books about data modeling and how to build the correct data model. Nowadays, a lot of people just think that it's enough to build a data lake, throw some rows there, billions of rows without knowing what the content is. And then from there, you will derive a gold mine of information. That is not going to happen. You're just building a huge pile of rubbish that is not a gold mine. It's just a pile of rubbish. That is what it is. You need to build a data model to turn that pile of data into insights.
If I can add one thing, Alberto, assuming that there are many people who are watching us and they don't have a formal education in what we're discussing, let me clarify one thing. When we talk about Kimball and data model, the point is not that it is important to create a star schema because Power BI is faster. That is a small detail of the problem. The thing is that if you have to describe your problem through a star schema, you are forced to think about what you need. And you are forced to think about what is the result I want to achieve. Because the star schema is a model for providing answer to questions. It's not a model just to store the data in a way that it can be retrieved later. That is the big difference between, I have, there is a long, year-long discussion about, should we build a corporate data warehouse? Should we build just a data lake? Should we do this? Should we do that? All these decisions simply defer the problem to a later day when we will ask, okay, what do we want to see? When it comes the moment where you have to to create your star schema, your fact table and dimensions, it's the moment where you have to ask yourself, what do I need? What do I have to build? Because you have to answer these questions before starting to create a dimension or a fact table. If you're not able to say, oh, this could be a dimension, this could be a fact table. Wait a minute. For a specific question, there will be no doubt whether we're talking about dimension or a fact table. The problem is that you're not asking the right question. You are just saying, I just want to store data. Why? I don't know. Okay, but at that point, if you just have to store data, it's too early to design anything. So use whatever you want, use the data lake, use whatever you want. But thinking that the solution is skipping the data warehouse because now we have a magical tool that can just get in our big data store and retrieve the answer is not going to work.
Yeah, to me, I always think about this problem like building a house. So if you want to build a house, of course you need bricks, and that is fine. But what people are doing, they are collecting huge piles of bricks with no structure, no projects, and the bricks are there. And they pretend to transform that with a magic wand into a house. But it's never going to happen. You need to build a project. You need to buy the correct amount of bricks. You have constraints, and you have a lot of things to think about. But now the data lake, it's a pile of bricks and nothing else. It's not a house. So learn to build a house. To me, at the end, it's all about that, learning all the stuff, because business intelligence is not new. The trend of self-service BI is new, but Kimball is not a youngster. He wrote his books ages ago, and they are still really, really good.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, your second question was what to wait. What will be the next new announcement?
Yeah,
but I think on this, I'm totally with Jeffrey when he says, "Come on, the composite models are not completely baked, and you're already asking for the next new feature." I think the new composite model is by far the big news of 2021, and it will stay there for a long time because this is really huge. It's gonna change the way the entire ecosystem works with self-service business intelligence. And what's coming next, I honestly don't know. I think there are a lot of improvement that can be done on the DAX language. We discussed them a lot of time trying to ask for features that we think are important, even though always think that adding features to DAX means making it more complex, and DAX is already complex enough. So they always need to balance complexity with ease of use. I heard Jeffrey talk about visual calculations. Those would be really welcome because they would be a step forward towards users that have no experience with DAX and they just want to compute simple numbers based on what they see on the screen.
Alberto, my understanding, listening to the Jeffrey interview, it requires 2 to 3 years at least.
Yeah.
Because there is no way they can ship it before 2022 and probably 2023 and maybe later. Because the idea is that they don't want to implement just the language, they want to implement the UI for that. When it comes to the UI in Power BI, guys, you have to wait. You have to wait. You have to be very patient.
Yeah, to me, it looks like the world turned upside down. When I was younger, building the UI was the easiest job. I mean, building the engine was hard, but I mean, the UI, you give it to any youngster and it's done. Now that we have all this web stuff, building a UI becomes a nightmare. We have features in the engine for which there is no UI, so it's like the feature is not there.
Yeah, it's a long discussion. I prefer to not enter into this discussion. It would be too dangerous.
Yeah, I know. Even because it makes me feel so old that it's better to.
No, dangerous because we can discuss. I mean, it's a controversial topic, so better to stay away from this discussion.
I know, but I remember that I think it was a couple of years ago during the roundup. We always meet in person, the SQL BI team. At least once a year, we spend 2-3 days all together just to have some fun and to discuss what we are doing and stuff like this. And Daniele, who works on the user interface, on web development and all these new development techniques, Daniele presented us a session, an entire day session teaching us how to develop in the web, in the world of the web. So JavaScript and all this fancy youngster stuff. And I totally remember having seen him talking for one day. And at the end of the day, I said, you know what? I do not want to learn all this. I know I'm older, but that's not the way I even think about development. So let's leave this to youngsters. I will go back to my DAX and C# code because everything is so different now.
You look so old, Alberto. You look so old.
It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting that the two of you share this insight regarding this, the storage and turning the data into insights, in focusing on the data mart and the questions, because you guys exactly come from this background that you have over 20 years experience with this tech. You've seen it all. You've seen the tabular editor version. You've seen the multidimensional. You've seen the first version of tabular, the second version, now on the brink of the third, and you think this way. So it's really insightful and can give us all an idea. So guys, I think this is a very important takeaway. Focus on the insights, focus on the data mart, and bring value added from your data. So it's quite interesting. I think we have just 5 minutes, and I have here one question here in the chat from George that he already sent also in the quiz that have a lot of likes, and I wanted to share this one, which is one of the best practices involving calculation groups is avoiding sideways recursion. Could you guys explain why and when sideways recursion could be a problem?
The problem, it's really hard to tell you when it might be a problem. The problem of calculation groups is that they are an extremely powerful weapon. They are really complex. If you build 2-3 calculation groups and you need to define the rules of precedence between the calculation groups, it's extremely simple to make mistakes because of the complexity. With sideway recursion, it's again the same scenario. Sideway recursion means that a calculation item can call another calculation item, but then that other calculation item cannot call back the original one. And when this does not happen, so this might happen, the second calculation item can call the first one, but that code would be ignored. This is the definition of sideway recursion. So you can have one call to another calculation item, but that calculation item cannot call the original one anymore. It works exactly as expected, but to me it's beyond the human brain. You cannot easily follow what happens when calculation items start to call one the other. It's just too powerful. And the only reason to use it is because you want to save some code. Instead of repeating the code of a calculation item, you just call that.
If I can add one thing, the real problem is that it is dangerous because you don't have an error. So if it doesn't work as you expect, you should figure out this by the raw numbers you get as a result, not because there is an error. So imagine this, you have a measure calling, a calculation item is calling another calculation item, this is calling another calculation item. Then you make a change in one of these calculation items. You don't realize that you call something that in the chain has been already called. The call disappears, you get the result, but it's not what you expect. And it's so complex to understand what is going on at that point, because we don't even have a debugger for regular DAX. No, I mean, thinking about how to debug calculation groups, it's a total nightmare because it's really complex. So it's about the complexity. The idea is that we still didn't publish a clear guideline about how to use calculation groups in more complex scenarios, basically because in our opinion, it is still not a mature feature in Power BI because a few features are missing, optimizations are still not as good as they could be, and the consumption experience in Power BI is not ideal because when you apply the calculation item to a visual, it applies to every measure, including, for example, the calculation for the
tooltips or the filter or the axis.
The conditional formatting. So everything is applied, and sometimes it's not what you want. So for this reason, It's a feature that is still not as mature as it should be. So our suggestion today, use it in a simple way. Don't create too much complexity in the calculation group. At the cost of duplicating the code in the calculation group, keep it simple so that you are under control.
All right. So thank you very much, guys. We are on the last 5 minutes, so we'll do a final question while we also share the feedback survey to everyone. So I'll share here. You guys have it already, the link on the chat. As it's a Google form, if you are inside a corporate policy, please open it on your personal device and you will be able to open it. So please fill your feedback. This will really help us to plan the next meetups upcoming. We want to listen about if you enjoyed this session, if the content was interesting for you, and which suggestions you have also for our community for the upcoming meetups. We had over 140 people again today in the meetup, which is quite fantastic. I think Marco and Alberto, from the meetups that you go in many places, you know how fantastic this number really is, and shows also the interest that our community has on you guys today, and will continue to follow you. So the feedback form is open for everyone, and I'll just scout here the chat to see if we have just a final question for you guys to finalize the meetup. And I have here one from Rui, which is, what's your thoughts on Power BI Premium per user versus Azure analysis services? From my perspective, it's a killer for companies with 100 to 300 users. What is your perspective?
So it's a killer. I don't understand the question. I mean, because of 100, 300 users, you're probably in the middle, but I mean, in general, so if you can clarify what you mean by 100, 300. In general, Power BI Premium per user is very interesting as a value proposition, especially when you have a small number of users. When you have many users, at that point, you have to evaluate whether it is more convenient or not. There are still a few differences, however, between Azure Analysis Services and Power BI Premium. Marx is going to bridge the gap, but in certain scenarios where you want to achieve a certain level of scalability, or you have to manage very large models, probably, I mean, imagine you have more than 100 gigabytes of data in your model, you probably want to keep Azure Analysis Services at the moment. But for many models that are, 10, 20, 30 gigabytes, and you have 50 users, you probably can go to Power BI Premium per user and save a lot of money. And this is possible today. I mean, it will be available from April 2nd, if I remember well, in general availability. So it's basically already in preview, and that could be a good value proposition. I'm not sure that for 200, 300 users, it could be more convenient. It depends. You have to do the math. It's really a question of doing some calculation and understanding the real workload you might have. Because when you have Power BI Premium per user, even though Microsoft does not guarantee that you have a certain level of performance, the reality is that probably is going to be better than Azure Analysis Services with the same workload if you have really hundreds of users active at the same time. It could be better than certain scalability options you have in Azure Analysis Services. But again, it depends also on, for example, the geographical distribution of your users. Power BI today is a single tenant. I'm not aware about how you manage Power BI where in a global company where you have multiple sites. In Azure Analysis Services, you can control the deployment in certain regions. I'm not sure you can do that in Power BI today. So for really large models, I don't know, but for medium to small, probably is gonna kill Azure Analysis Service for many use cases. I agree.
All right. So definitely something to consider. It's a new game changer, and as the usual BI professional, it depends. Just let's use it for our best benefit, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Marco and Alberto, we are right on time, 12:15, and I know that it's 1 hour later in Italy, so we want to leave you guys also to go for to have some nice lunch, and we hope really to see you soon in another meetup, being hopefully even in a live meetup for some training, for some comfort.
Oh, yes.
We would really love it. It was fantastic to have the two of you together. We have still a lot of unanswered questions, but let's leave it for another opportunity, and we hope you guys can come to another meetup very soon. Thank you so much for today, for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Thank you. Be safe. All.